Kia ora talofa namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cache. This is our big old podcast, and we're here to chat through some Aotearoa sporting matters. Plenty to discuss. The Tall Blacks have been in action over the weekend. Got some Blackcaps and domestic cricket contract bits and pieces. Bit of news for Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix, as well as they build their squads for the upcoming A-League season. Got some more rugby league stuff, but I do want to start with the Warriors woman, who had a lovely win over the Bulldogs in Hamilton on Sunday. The Bulldogs entered NRLW last season, and that was the season that the Warriors returned to NRLW. And it's pretty handy that the Warriors have a combined score of 66-16 against the Bulldogs in their two games so far. And unfortunately, it's a bit like the Broncos men's team at the moment, because they're losing while they have a lot of players from Aotearoa in their team. So it's a bit unfortunate there. Obviously, their depth is being challenged. You're seeing more of the Kiwi NRL juniors, your Preston Rickies, Hayes Perham, those type of players getting good opportunities at the Broncos, but the Broncos are losing. And it's not quite the same, but it's similar for the Bulldogs, because the Bulldogs do have a massive group of young and old wahine from Aotearoa throughout their system. I talked about this in the YouTube video last week, how the Bulldogs have always had lots of NRL wahine juniors in their under 17 teams, their under 19 teams, their reserve grade team, as they were building into an NRLW team. And that is still happening now that they do have an NRLW team. Unfortunately for the Bulldogs, I don't think they won a lot of games last season, let alone they lost to the Warriors in their game last season in that matchup. Let me check here. NRLW 2025. The Bulldogs were... Got to skip through to round end of the season. The Bulldogs were 9th, 3 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, and 7 losses. 1 spot below the Warriors. So they're not a dominant NRLW team with all that Aotearoa flavour. And they have lost both games against the Warriors in their existence. As I said, crazy points margin, 66-16. There's footy things of note with that Warriors team. But the thing I've been thinking the most about with the Warriors woman is the opportunity to kind of take over the women's sporting landscape in New Zealand and become the most supported women's sports thing in New Zealand right now. And it's a bit tricky because you don't want to say, oh, it's just women's sport. Separate that from the men's sport. Like, I'm aware that I am doing that, which isn't my ideal mode of operation. And part of this does include the glow that the Warriors have as an organization. So yes, there's also an opportunity for the Warriors woman to be one of the biggest, most supported teams in New Zealand, sports teams, and just most buzzworthy, hyped things happening in New Zealand sport right now. But that does involve the glow of the men's team. But this is mainly due to the lack of other women's sports teams of a similar ilk, like a similar level. And you'll be able to help me brainstorm through this. Take the White Ferns, for example. in theory, they got a bit of this with the T20 World Cup success. But not only was their most recent, their T20 World Cup success was overseas as well. So there's a bit of distance there. But they had an opportunity to do something similar with their most recent T20 World Cup, and they stunk it up. You know, if you start a T20 World Cup campaign losing to West Indies, losing to Sri Lanka, that's not really capturing the fandom. That is doing the opposite. And a lot of people would have thought like, oh, you lost to West Indies, you lost to Sri Lanka. Not only are you playing over in England, kind of out of sight, out of mind to some degree, but you're clearly not going to perform very well at the T20 World Cup if you lose a couple of games you should be winning. But the White Ferns do have Mealy Kerr. And Mealy Kerr is a superstar of women's sport and Kiwi sport here in Aotearoa. So there's some of that happening. Then you have like other athletes who are performing in a distant land. So there isn't really the connection to the community that is a key factor here. So Charlie Sledger-Walker, she's in the WNBA. No media is covering her game-to-game grind in the WNBA. So, like, people, like, if you're, not a lot of people know how Charlie Sledger-Walker is performing in the WNBA. They know she's in the WNBA, but they're not really fully tapped into that degree unless you are following the niche case. Nothing aside from the Black Ferns, like again, Black Ferns Sevens, they're playing overseas. So there is a little bit of a disconnect there. Aside from Black Ferns playing games in New Zealand and winning and generating buzz and hype through their personalities, that could rival this, but the Black Ferns aren't playing right now. We got Super Rugby Aupiki, and nothing happening in Super Rugby Aupiki is close to NRLW, let alone what the Warriors women are capable of in NRLW. So I believe there is a gap, there's a hole, there's a void in the Kiwi sports fandom right now that the Warriors can fill, the Warriors women's team. Am I missing, like obviously you got your Lydia Coes and stuff like that as well, but they're doing it overseas. They're not hand-to-hand meeting young women on the streets. They're not, coming out of grassroots rugby league clubs like the Warriors played in Hamilton. They got Maya Hill-Moana, Harata Butler from Taniwharo in the Waikato. Capri Paikau is from the Waikato. Those are examples of the connections that we're talking about here to the community, let alone the superstar status. And the Warriors defeated the Bulldogs, and two of their most vibrant personalities weren't even playing, Mele Hofunga and Stacey Waka. So imagine what's happening when those two are performing at a high level with their personalities that are also evident through the smiles and the joy that you see when you're watching that Warriors team train and play, with Gail Broughton as a fantastic example. And again, a lot of these players aren't just regular Kiwi athletes. These are, whether it's a Gail Broughton or Stacey Waka, they have been Kiwi superstars in rugby union. Mele Hofunga is a superstar of women's rugby league. So it's like that elite performance mixed with their personality delivers us to this juncture that I'm talking about. But am I missing anything that may be part of that void or that gap? Because there's no women's football thing that is close to this. Again, a lot of the women's football stuff is happening overseas right now, but we did see the Wellington Phoenix women capture.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say, is there is the Phoenix women.
They did capture some of this as an example of what I'm talking about here, where if you're winning and you've got the personalities and the connection to the community, because the Wellington Phoenix women are part of this Wellington-centric thing that is also evident in the Wellington Blaze, And the Wellington Blaze is, to me, they are the leaders of like domestic sports teams and women's sports because they win. They got their dynasty in the Super Smash, but their games are more supported than the Wellington Firebirds games. That's the connection to the community. Wellington loves the Wellington Blaze. They get massive crowds for Super Smash games at the Basin Reserve. And we saw some of that with the Wellington Phoenix women. So yes, the Wellington Phoenix women fit that script, but they're not playing right now.
There is also, I think, with them, because the community aspect of what you're talking about, absolutely the Wellington Phoenix women are hitting that. Like they're very sort of grassroots orientated. They have players who have played around the country in National League and stuff, do a lot of work and sort of engaging with the fans and all that. The personality side of things, though, I think the personalities are there in that squad, but I do think there is like sort of a dominating personality atop that, which is Coach Bev Priestman, who is an imported figure, you know. Whether like I don't know that she's, oh, who knows? She's got one more year on her contract. So the cool thing about that is they made it all the way to the grand final. They were kind of outclassed once they got there by Melbourne City, but Melbourne City's best player, Holly McNamara, has gone overseas now, so she won't be back next season. They will still have Rebecca Stott, Bev Priestman's arch nemesis, but there is no reason why in their second season under Bev Priestman why they can't, well, why they won't at least believe they can go further. They've made a grand final first time, okay, go out and win it the next time. It's not that far off actually, the trajectory that we just saw from the Auckland FC blokes, where it's like you were great in the first season, but you didn't win the title. Come back the next year and actually do that, like make up for cover the distance. The Phoenix women will have a squad to be able to do that. It's just, I think a lot of the success is going to be lumped on Bev Priestman's shoulders, a bit more than like the core of Kiwi players they have in there, who will still get their fair share of you know, glory, but and did last season. But that is maybe a slight drawback in terms of that. But also, I'm not really sure that it's filling a void, but I'm not sure if it's filling the same void as what you're talking about. Like, I don't know if those the Warriors women and what they're doing, and the Phoenix women and what they're doing. I don't know if they're really competing for fans or attention. You know, there are different parts of the country, different sports, probably a bit of different, well, not necessarily different kind of, you know, player bases, but mostly different player bases. Like, I don't think there's a lot of kids who are choosing, am I playing rugby league or am I playing football as 10-year-olds? But there's enough room for everyone to go around, so that's fine. But yeah, I don't know that they're quite overlapping.
But this is the thing, like the Wellington Phoenix woman generated fandom from casual Kiwi sports fans. And that is part of what is going to happen with the Warriors women's team. Is you've got hardcore Warriors fans who are going to follow the team. You've got hardcore women's sports fans who are going to support, who are going to tap into any women's sport. But then you've also got Kiwi sports fans who just want something to hold on to. And that happened with the Wellington Phoenix women's team. There were people who weren't football fans who wanted a Kiwi sports team to rally behind. And of course it happens when you're seeing Auckland FC go well in the A-League, when you're seeing Blackcaps or White Ferns perform whatever. But it's not only is there a gap right now in July and heading into August, but the Warriors women, they have not, like, because part of this is winning, and there were signs against the Bulldogs that the Warriors women's team can be a good team. Like, they'll have a lot of work to do to compete with the best teams basically to ever play NRLW, the Broncos and the Roosters, with a few good Newcastle Knights seasons where they won championships with Ronald Griffiths as coach, and he is now the Warriors coach. So they've got that winning pedigree there in the organization, but the team is set up to succeed as well. Like the halves combination, Gail Broughton, Patricia Maliepo, fantastic. Api Nichols, a veteran of NRLW, she showed, development as a mature player in that Warriors game at fullback, like her passing and bit of kicking and everything she did. Then you go through, they got a couple of good dummy halves, Capri Paikau and Jasmine Hudawai. The forward pack was destructive against the Bulldogs, with Hilma Wana, Harata Butler, Shakira Baker, all those players. And they won that game with Malihu Funga's the starting centre if she's available. Stacey Walker's going to be in the team if she's available. Ivana Lauatiti will be in that team when she's available. She wasn't even playing. So there's signs that this Warriors team can be really good. But then you add in the spark and twinkle that they have as personalities and as leaders as well, because that team, that Warriors squad, is Māori and Polynesian. There's no half Pākehā, half Palangis in that squad. They are all Māori or Polynesian. Even the Aussies, Emanita Paki, she's Australian, I think she's Tongan. They've brought over Jasmine Hudawai, who played rugby union for Australia. She's a Hāti Māori who won't be choosing to represent Australia in rugby league. She's going to be pursuing Kiwi Ferns representation. Like Michaela Brake, she's no longer in the squad. Everyone in the Warriors squad is Māori or Polynesian. That's a massive factor here as well, because we're in a time when people are trying to divide New Zealand culturally, racially. And yet all our sports teams feature incredible racial diversity. And a lot of our sports teams are led by Māori and Polynesians. And then you've got someone like Mealy Kerr, who has fully embraced the Māori culture and cultural diversity as a leader of the White Ferns. So there's a bit of that as well, where not only is this a massive factor for Māori and Polynesians in Aotearoa who can feel that connection to their sporting heroes, but we're at a time when communities, like peeps, for whatever reason, some jokers are trying to divide us culturally and racially at this moment in time. And yet you've got a team like the Warriors who epitomize the opposite. Not only are they bringing together people in that squad to boost their mana and their the culture they have there, but you look at the fans in the stadium. They're incredibly diverse watching those Warriors games, men and women. So they have that kind of societal impact as well, which I think it's not the main factor, but it is a factor along with good footy, along with vibrant personalities. Like if you just watch anything of Gail Broughton, Patricia Maliepo, any of those players, you're going to be smiling. You're going to be chuckling and giggling and having fun, which is another key factor here. And it's an opportunity. That's all it is. But if the Warriors win a few more games and people become more familiar with these players, this Warriors women's team will take over New Zealand sport. And it's going to be packaged at the same time with the men's team. But if we're just focusing on women's sport in New Zealand right now, not only is there a gap that presents the opportunity, but that gap, that opportunity is happening at a time when the Warriors women's team has everything they need to be a dominant force in New Zealand sport. And I don't know if people are really ready for that to happen, but I predict it will happen because I think they will win more games, and everything I'm talking about will flow on the back of that.
Yeah, the winning is the key part, isn't it? Because you got to get on a roll if you want to get that if you want to get that crossover attention from just the casuals, you've got to be winning. You've got to be shown that their time is best spent watching your team as opposed to whatever other team might be or athlete might be on at the same time. Because the thing about this country is we're really good at sports, so there are actually a lot of options and a lot of different sports, and you do have to like you said about the Warriors, is that there's a level of like diehard support that team is going to get week in, week out, that the men's team gets the men's team sells out whether they're winning or losing. So that at this stage that doesn't even matter. But there is absolutely going to be a flow-on effect to the women's team. That's always going to be there. But to get the crossover attention, to be sort of like taking headlines off the back page away from like rugby or netball. Which is difficult because those sports have a lot of negative headlines about them at the moment. It seems like a lot of things, particularly netball, doesn't know exactly how to run a competition or et cetera, and you're also competing with for negative attention by trying to put positive attention up there, which isn't always how those things get arranged. But like, as long as that team is winning, all the other ingredients are there, I guess is what you're saying. And I look forward to seeing whether that will happen or not, because I hope it does. Like, that would be, not only would that be cool from like the perspective that we come at these things by not covering rugby or netball or whatever, it would also just be cool because they seem like a cool team, and they will, if they're winning games, they'll be winning them playing fun and vibrant footy and ripping in and doing the stuff that people want to see from a sports team that represents them here. And like that'd just be great. That would be a great journey to be a part of, and I hope that happens.
I do indeed. And it will, like, all of that came from watching that Bulldogs game, like just watching how the Warriors played, knowing the background of their players who all come from like high performance backgrounds, whether it is through NRLW, whether it's Black Ferns, whether it's Black Ferns Sevens, they all have that elite background that will drive winning as well. But then you've also got a few like recruitment deep cuts that we've seen, most notably for round one. It was Christabel Onesimo. I think her full name is Onesimo Tuilaipa, her and her sister grew up in Samoa. And I think I read that they debuted playing rugby union for Samoa as like 14 or 15-year-olds. Then they moved to Auckland and made representative teams in rugby league, in rugby union. And she came out of nowhere. Like, she wasn't part of any contract announcements before round one. She wasn't like part of any squad list. Then she's named number 17. Straight out of, like, we've seen this a few times now over the last two seasons, like Ashley Matapo. She's a 19-year-old who started against the Bulldogs. She made her debut last year as an 18-year-old coming straight out of local footy in Auckland. She's in her second season. Ivana Lauatiti does have that family pedigree, but she played NRLW coming straight out of local footy in Auckland. So yes, you do have, you're recruiting Gail Broughton. You're getting Patricia Maliepo, who was a Black Fern before joining the Warriors. Ignacio Shakira Baker, who do have those backgrounds in rugby union as well. Even someone like a Mariri Pukatapu. She was playing reserve grade footy in Queensland before joining the Warriors. Peyton Takimoana, she was playing Super Rugby Aupiki before joining the Warriors. Like, a lot of these players, people might not know much about. Lavinia Tauhala Liku. She played NRLW for the Cowboys before joining the Warriors. So even the players you don't know much about, they all have backgrounds in, solid levels of performance. in rugby union or rugby league, but the Warriors have also developed players like Matapo, like Lauatiti, and now Onisimo, who were playing local footy in Auckland and have made the step up to NRLW. And you've also got a very, there's not a lot of South Island presence in this Warriors women's squad. You do have South Islanders in the NRLW, like Rosie Kelly coming out of Hokitika. You've got other South Islanders who are playing in Australian systems as well, like a Manisha Seebeck, who's part of the Roosters system coming out of Christchurch. But you don't have any South Islanders in the Warriors women's squad. But you do have a good mix. Heavy-duty Auckland presence, good Waikato presence. You've got, Shakira Bakers from the Wairarapa, Poki Tapu's from Wellington, Broughton's from Taranaki, and you've got someone else like Ocean Tieni, who's from Northland, Tinopai, small place in Northland as well. So you've got a very good regional mix aside from that South Island factor in this women's Warriors squad as well. And we already saw signs of this last year. There's been a few headlines about the biggest crowds for domestic women's rugby union in New Zealand. Well, the Warriors women's squad had the 3 biggest crowds for standalone NRLW games last year. Those Hamilton games drew bigger crowds for standalone NRLW games than anything in Australia. The crowd for this game against the Bulldogs was lower, but I think that is the opportunity for people to see how good this team can be, how good they already are, and there is plenty for Kiwi sports fans to connect with in this Warriors team as well. So we'll keep track of that. Next week they're off to play in Canberra against the Raiders, and I'll be covering all the team selections tomorrow in a YouTube video there as well. Let's get a bit of mindfulness before we carry on with a few more rugby league bits and pieces.
Yeah, we can do that. From a man, Mr. William Butler Yeats, he said, "In dreams begin responsibilities."
In dreams begin responsibilities. I don't understand that.
Well, you're responsible for... I have an inkling of this, of where I think I could take this quite a bit deeper, and I'm not sure if I'd be able to do it, about how, we've viewed the world through our own perceptions and everything's filtered through that, and your dreams are sort of like a subconscious reflection of those perceptions, and therefore maybe you're learning things in your dreams that you need to be responsible for because those are lessons you ought to be taking on to. But I think there's also just like a more surface level thing there of you owe it to yourself to see things through. If you want something, you might not, I can't say if you want it, go out and get it, because you might not be able to. There might be other circumstances that prevent you. I would I would love to be Erling Haaland at the moment, but there's many reasons why I can't. I wasn't born in Norway, for one. Also, not 6'5" and the fastest guy on the planet. So quite a few things restricting me from doing that. But, to the best of your abilities, give it a crack. That's your responsibility, is if you have a if you have a dream, like whatever that might happen to be, probably a more attainable one is little more fitting, but give it a nudge, go for it. That's your responsibility. Do you owe it to yourself?
Yeah, the dream term's a bit tricky, because is it actual dreams, or is it my dream to one day be doing this or that? Because a lot of the time,
whichever way you want to go with it, I guess.
A lot of yes, there people draw meanings from their actual dreams, but sometimes those dreams are like just ludicrous. And yeah, you can try and like connect the dots and be like, oh, this thing means this. If you can remember your dreams, which
Yes,
and
yeah.
as soon as I wake up, I'm either shook from my dreams and I don't want to remember them, or I just can't remember them. But a lot of the time, my dream has like, it's just so crazy that I can't even comprehend how it connects to my actual life. So I don't try not to draw too big a connection to my actual dreams. But if you do have a dream or an ambition, then obviously responsibility is going to be a part of that, because you need to take responsibility for how you conduct yourself to achieve that dream, that objective.
Yeah, I have tried to do that, like Carl Jung style dream analysis stuff before, and like this thing means this, and it's everything's a symbol for something else, and the actual like contents of your dream are not the actual message you're supposed to be taking from whatever's filtering through your subconscious there. You're meant to be translating it into archetypes and stuff like this, but it's difficult. And also, like, it's difficult from that perspective. And also, like you said, it's hard enough just to remember your dreams. You don't have a lot to work with if you just you wake up because your alarm clock goes off, and it's like whatever was there, it's gone now. I've missed it. I've lost it. It's sand through my fingers, you know. So that's not a particularly. Maybe I'll make that my dream one day, is to better understand my dreams. I don't know. That might be an attainable one, but to date, haven't managed that.
I want to just quickly touch on this Knights versus Dolphins game that did finish off the latest NRL round, because fantastic performance from Dylan Brown specifically, kicking the winning drop goal. We also had a 40-20 from Phoenix Crossland to set up that drop goal, both New Zealand Kiwis players. But we've got a situation now where Dylan Brown has made the most of his move to halfback. He's playing very well at halfback, and that's a credit to Dylan Brown. And we now have Dylan Brown, Tamaita Martin, Cody Nikorima, who are all playing something close to career best footy. And I don't think anyone's like saying Jerome Hughes is playing career best footy for the Storm based on how the Storm are going this season. But there are a few stat things where Jerome Hughes is delivering one of his best seasons in the NRL. He's got a career high assist per game and is doing second highest kick meters per game. So if Jerome Hughes isn't in career best form, he is at least playing very, very well, which means that the Kiwis have 4 fantastic halves in the NRL right now, 3 of whom are playing halfback: Tamaita Martin, Dylan Brown, and Jerome Hughes, with Cody Nikorima playing number 6 for the Dolphins. That's obviously very important in a World Cup year, and I still am tracking this kind of spine depth cooking for the Kiwis, because you got Kalen Ponga now with the Kiwis. He's going to be a fullback. Keanu Kinney's there. Maybe Kaio Weeks wants to play for the Kiwis as well. Even if he doesn't want to play for the Kiwis, Tane Tuaupike's playing the best footy of his career. Then you go hooker, Phoenix Crossland, Jeremy Marshall King, Brandon Smith. So you kind of got 4 halves playing at a high level, 2 or 3 fullbacks playing at a high level, 3 hookers right now doing all right. Brandon Smith has been injured a lot in the last few seasons, but at least you've got some good depth cooking there. And it was another reminder that Dylan Brown is doing fantastic things for the Knights at halfback, having moved from number 6, where he was playing at the Eels, to halfback. And this is most evident in his kick meters per game, because he's got 311 kick meters per game this season. His previous highest was 125 kick meters per game. So he's more than doubled it. Move into halfback with the Knights. So shout out to Dylan Brown, obviously coming out of Northland. That's the other thing. All those halves, Dylan Brown from Northland, Tamaira Martin from the Waikato, Cody Nikarima, Burnham Jr. from Christchurch, also got a connection to Palmerston North before he moved to Australia, and Jerome Hughes is from Wellington. None of those halves are from Auckland, but you've got another half like Chanel Harris-Tavita who's playing well for the Warriors, who is aligned with Samoa. And also in this game, we had a debut for John Fineanganofo. He played 10 minutes off the bench, replacing Jeremy Marshall-King at hooker. This happened less than 24 hours after his older brother, Fehe Fineanganofo, made his debut for the All Blacks. So Fehe made his debut for the All Blacks, then John made his NRL debut for the Dolphins, which is pretty interesting when we're thinking about rugby league and rugby union, because Fehe made his debut for the All Blacks, dream come true for him and his family to play for the All Blacks. Like, none of these players, while at the peak of their careers, are choosing to play rugby union for Samoa or Tonga. Meanwhile, I fully expect John Fineanganofo to play for Tonga. So there's a different, like, these are two brothers who both played first 15 for Auckland Grammar School. They both grew up in Onehunga, grew up in Auckland, and took different career pathways. Fehe left Auckland Grammar, played All Black Sevens. They also got another older brother, Melino, who played first 15 for Auckland Grammar and then entered the Warriors system for a couple of years. Two brothers, two different codes, and two very different international eligibility situations, which sums up the status of Pacific Island Rugby Union and Pacific Island Rugby League, because not only did John come through the Hakula Tonga pathway in Auckland, Tonga's coach is Christian Wolf, who is the Dolphins coach as well. Under 18s, under 21s, and Queensland Cup in 2023, his first year in Queensland, leaving Auckland. He also made the Australian schoolboys team in 2023. And that was we've got 5 consecutive years of a Kiwi NRL junior moving to Australia and making the Australian schoolboys team within a year or two. So 2021, Dean Mariner. 2022, Keanu Kinney. 2023, John Fineanganofo. 2024, Mason Barber, who's currently in the Cowboys system, but he joins Perth Bears next year. And last year there were Antonio Verhoeven, who made his debut for the Broncos this year. Felipe Fakaho, who's an Otahuhu Jr. I think he's in the Roosters system. Jake White, who's a Bell Block Jr. from New Plymouth. He's with the Sharks. And David Bryanton, who was an Ellerslie Jr. before moving to Australia, and he started this year with the Bulldogs, but then left the Bulldogs, so I don't know where he's at, but that's 5 consecutive years of a Kiwi NRL junior being named in the Australian schoolboys team. Like most of the others, Fineanganofo did it in his first year of being in Australia. And 2023, his first year in Redcliffe, that was the year that Tavita Nofahu played for the New Zealand schools team in rugby union. First with, because I think they had Peter O'Sullivan as their recruitment dude entering NRL, and Peter O'Sullivan loves first 15 rugby. So most of the dudes on the rise in the Dolphins system have played first 15 rugby. Obviously, a lot of them have also played rugby league as juniors. And a couple of guys to watch out for in that Dolphins system moving forward are Elijah Rasmussen, who's played Queensland Cup this year. He went to Westlake Boys High School, played little bit of rugby league, but he was mainly playing first 15 for Westlake Boys High School. And also Patrick Kailahi, who played first 15 for Hamilton Boys High School. He's played Queensland Cup in the Redcliffe system as well. Two dudes who played NRL preseason for the Dolphins this year. Sangstar Fagota, who's a Marist junior from Auckland, and Adequix Jeremiah Watts Luke, who is Isaac Luke's son. He's also played a preseason game for the Dolphins as well. He was an Ellerslie junior before moving to Queensland, and he was in the Queensland under-19 team with Bishop Neal from the Warriors for their... they just had their game against New South Wales recently. So the Dolphins entered the NRL with a bunch of players who they recruited from New Zealand at the junior levels. And obviously they also have Cody Nikarima, Jeremy Marshall-King, Connolly Lemuelu, who's from Tangaroa College in Aotearoa, but he didn't start with the Dolphins, and Sebastian Sua, Murphy Sua's son. He played his first game of the season for the Dolphins, 31 minutes off the bench as a middle forward. But he initially left Auckland. He went to King's College, but I don't think he actually played first 15 for King's College. He left Auckland. He was playing rugby league for Mount Albert, left Auckland, joined the Knights, and made his NRL debut for the Knights. Then he moved up to the Dolphins, and he played his first game, as I said, against the Knights, with Fineanganofo also coming off the bench there. And it's a good snapshot. The Dolphins are a good snapshot of all things rugby league in Aotearoa, because you've got, Jermaine Isako was also playing, and he's one of the players who played rugby league and rugby union in Christchurch. Eastern Eagles Jr. from Aranui, who played first 15 for Shirley Boys High School in St. Bede's, I think. So you got players like him who played both codes. You've got the first 15 players who are just first 15 players, Tavita Nofahu, John Fineanganofo. You've got Connolly Lemuelu, didn't go to a big school in Auckland, but his talent led him into the NRL. You've also got the likes of Marshall King, Cody Nikarima, who left Aotearoa at a young age. So everything about rugby league in Aotearoa right now is evident in the Dolphins NRL team. Again, because Fineanganofo Nofahu, I expect him to play for Tonga. Lemuelu's already played for Samoa. Marshall King, Nikarima, and Isako are regulars for the Kiwis. All of that's evident throughout their system as well, moving through the grades. So if you want to learn anything about Kiwi NRL, bits and pieces, tap in with the Dolphins, because they sum it up pretty damn well. Or the Knights, because the Knights have juniors from Aotearoa at every level of their system. They didn't have Kalen Ponga for that game. They did have Greg Mazu, who started out as a Mangere East junior in Auckland, Samoan International, Dylan Brown, Phoenix Crossland, and Francis Manuleilua, Papatoetoe Jr., King's College first 15. He was an unused bench player in that game. I think he might play for Samoa. He may be in the mix this year, but he could also choose the Kiwis, obviously. Probably depends where his opportunity comes as far as being an edge forward in both of those squads. But he's part of that good, that wider NRL system for the Knights as well. Bang. Tall Blacks. They had a win over the Philippines. And how did their game were they playing Guam?
They were playing Guam. And I didn't watch it because I was doing my domestic football roundup. So I actually just realised I forgot to check how they went. But Australia beat them by 72 points, so I assume we won pretty handily. This was like a nothing game because we'd already Even if we had lost the Philippines as well, we were already through to the next round of qualifying, as long as we either beat Guam or Australia beat Guam and Australia thrashed Guam. And so that's how that goes.
They did win 129-75.
So nice, handy win. Let's see if anyone did anything cool in that. 35 points in the first quarter, so blew them out nice and early. This was at North Shore as well. I don't know exactly why that is, but they played at Spark Arena for the Philippines game and then North Shore for the Guam game. Maybe, I guess that's because they just expected a much bigger crowd for the Philippines, which was the highlight of the weekend, because that was, as expected, that was awesome, that game. Incredible crowd, heaps and heaps of support for the Filipinos, probably outnumbering the local support, definitely on the decibel scale, outdoing the local support, but also still just like a good fun crowd that was rewarded with a great game that went to double overtime. Not a fluid, particularly impressive Tall Blacks performance, but they rebounded very well and they scored buckets when it mattered, and Shaley was fantastic, and Ruben Tarangi was making shots like he's been doing in the New Zealand NBL lately. So Sam Wardenberg, Sam Menenga, very good in the time they were out there. Because of the type of game it was, they mixed it up pretty extensively. Looks like even more so against Guam, where are we? Menenga 27 points. Tane Murray got 25 points. Didn't play a whole lot against Philippines, but had a decent, 10 or 15 minutes within there. Double overtime game as well, so that was a 50-minute game. Carlin Davison 16 points. Tarangi 12. Smith Milner 11 and 9, Timmins 11 and 10. Timmins barely played as well, but the only player who didn't play at all was Keanu Rasmussen in the first game. I assume he would have got something in the second game, but I haven't got the box score in front, so I can't say. But they did what they needed to do. Actually, they didn't even need to do it. They just did what they wanted to do. They knuckled down for a tough win against Philippines. The fact it wasn't like a glorious home thrashing of a team like that or anything, that means nothing. It's not that type of game. We're not in tournament. It's just a matter of... And Philippines are increasingly a really difficult team to play against too. When they get into like FIBA tournament mode, they're often able to call upon a couple of Americans with some kind of like Filipino heritage. Don't really get that for these types of games, but it just shows the growing level of a nation like that, where they're always competitive against the Tall Blacks in these types of qualifying situations. We've lost to them in the Philippines once before. We haven't lost to them at home. We nearly lost to them here in a game, like I say, we should have won by more. We should have been a little bit more cohesive, but didn't have to be, and still found the clutch stuff at the end when they needed it, and won a tough game, and that's kind of more fun. It's seeing as there's always a few key players unavailable for these types of things. Again, they're not in tournament mode or anything like that. It's a little bit of a one-off thing, and it's early qualifying rounds, so there wasn't really any jeopardy to it. Just a case of dig in for a good crowd and give them a cool game of basketball, and they did that. I saw James Fisher-Harris in the crowd as well, looked like with his boys, so that was... there's another nice little bit of sporting crossover, but yeah, good fun. And then backed it up with a big win over Guam, where they were able to give a few of those guys like Murray, like Timmins, who didn't play it a whole lot in the first game, able to give them big minutes in the second game of the window. So I don't know, I'd call that a successful outing for the Tall Blacks.
I think those Philippine games need to happen like every year or something. That needs to be a regular on the New Zealand basketball schedule. Obviously, these are like part of World Cup qualification or something like that, so that might lead to more games home and away against Philippines, but it's like an underground king storyline in New Zealand sports, because I can't talk shit about the mainstream media not caring about basketball when you had no idea about what happened about Guam, so that's
valid. Yes.
We live and we learn, but I just can't talk shit as I may usually do, so a little bit of humble pie there. But anyone who has seen anything about New Zealand versus Philippines basketball, now this isn't unique to New Zealand. Obviously, the Philippines love basketball and they will show up and support their team regardless of who the opposition is. But All Blacks versus Philippines basketball in New Zealand specifically, monster crowds, amazing fandom, and it's something that James Fisher-Harris wanted to get involved. So if you want to feel what it's like to watch or be there with Filipino basketball, go check out the next All Blacks versus Philippines game if you can. We also had the New Zealand under-17 team at their World Cup, where they finished 12th out of 16th. But you did talk about Jayden Cecil last week, and I just want an update on how Jayden Cecil went at this tournament, because he is one of the world of basketball emerging talents. But this dude, Jayden Cecil, is among the best in the world for his age bracket. I was trying to pinpoint where he's from in Aotearoa. He's from Australia. So he's from Australia, Gold Coast, Brisbane area, who then decided to represent Aotearoa. So shout out to him. There's a lot of because we're seeing this in rugby league as well. There's a wave of women who are switching from Australia to New Zealand. Ruben Cherrington, Shannon Mato, Sahara Tamara. And it's obviously big in football and basketball as well. Players born and raised in Australia who are choosing to represent New Zealand. That's something that is emerging as a big theme across these sports. And Jayden Cecil, Australia's really good at basketball. So it's not like he's choosing, a better team or a better country, a better basketballing program. He's choosing the weaker program, the weaker system, the weaker basketball nation, which sure, it may present him with greater opportunities as far as representing his nation, but this dude would be playing for Australia if he continues on his pathway. He's that good at basketball. So again, this is a sneaky little storyline to watch out for, because it is a good indicator of where New Zealand basketball is at, that one of the best under-17 players in the world has chosen to represent Aotearoa. How did his World Cup campaign finish off?
Well, I'm pretty sure he's one of those, his whole family is from New Zealand. I know for sure his dad is, proud Māori heritage and all this. So it's not like, he was born and raised in Australia, but I think he was born and raised as a Kiwi in Australia. It doesn't seem to be, because I've seen a few things of Aussie basketball scouts talking him up as a dual option, but then everything I've seen from him is always just seems to have been, and he's 16, so there's not a lot to go back on. He hasn't been eligible. This is the first major national team he's been eligible for, but there doesn't seem to have been any thought about not doing that. And he is based in America now and has been for a couple of years, because his dad, is what I talked about last time, his dad's the president of whatever at the Utah Prep School, something or other. And like I mentioned last week, Mark Dickel coaches them, and top overall draft pick went through there, blah, blah, blah. There's actually a really cool video, because his brother's there too. His brother's a couple years older than him. There's a very cool video of when, I think it was an earlier version of this New Zealand under-17s team, had a preparation tour and probably also competing for places for selection for this and whatever. They sent a squad over earlier in the year and played against, through the obvious connections, played against that Utah Prep School side. And Jayden Cecil played for the New Zealand side, but his brother's playing for the Utah Prep side. So they played against each other, and the New Zealand team did a haka beforehand. And his brother sort of is the only one from, the only New Zealander in this team of Americans, but he steps out and matches the haka. And, there's a video going somewhere on the internet that people will be able to find if they search this stuff up. But cool thing of them, not only a bit of footage of that, but also the brothers talking about it afterwards and what it meant to them. So That's all nice context for that. As to how his under-17 World Cup went, well, game 1, 42 points against Turkey. Game 2, 22 points in 22 minutes against Puerto Rico. Scored only 14 against Slovenia because that was actually quite a big win for New Zealand. Didn't win a lot of games of this tournament, but he always scored points. Got 37 against Serbia, 31 against Japan. He had 22 at half-time against Japan, just was knocking down three-pointers all over the show. 25 against China, and then 38 against Ivory Coast. So that adds up to 29.9 points per game on average, which was, and 209 points across the 7 games in total. Highest scoring player at the entire tournament. Like, nobody in the USA team that won it for the 8th year in a row, 8th tournament in a row, because it's every 2 years. No one in that team averaged more. Obviously, they've got, a fair bit more depth and spread it around, but nobody in the Turkey team, nobody in the Aussie team, the Serbian team, that all made the semi-finals. And we played against 2 of those teams. We played against Turkey, we played against Serbia. Those were 2 of Jayden Cecil's highest scoring games. Like, highest scoring player at the entire tournament by average, by accumulated totals. Not a super efficient player. Like, he misses a lot of shots to take a lot of shots, but he's still, 42% from the field, 38% from 3. Like, those aren't bad averages. It's not like shooting the lights out stuff, but it's pretty solid scoring, especially when you watch him play and you see that he's doing this from a few different levels. Like, he's got a quick release, really smooth shot action, so he can just, like, catch and shoot from anywhere with a little handoff, and he'll just get that ball up before the defender's got their body around in time to challenge him. He can pull up and transition. He can, move into the open spot and knock down those ones when the ball's flipping around, and he can drive to the rim. He's got some nice little moves there. He finishes decently enough around there, and will probably get better at that as he gets a bit stronger, as he gets older. And 71% from his free throws, but I think if you're a good 3-point shooter, the free throws are coming. Like that, you don't have to worry about that. He's gonna, as he gets more experience, he'll be draining those. He did go 9 out of 9 from the free throw line against Serbia, so there's some very good examples within that. And crucially as well, quite a few steals, and especially quite a few assists too. So he's not just a guy who you give him the ball and he shoots. You give him the ball, he's closed down, someone else is free, he's finding that pass. And like good vision, good awareness and leadership in those kind of ways. I think he's, there's some very good prospects on this team. I think Liam Coe is another one who's based in Australia. I thought he looked awesome. Marco Sula, who's based around the Wellington Saints system, I thought he looked really good. There's a few others in there, but those guys are really good prospects. Jayden Cecil is like probably one of the best prospects we've ever seen. Like, this dude is phenomenally talented, and talented in a way which is different to the types of players we normally bring through. Like, we're used to seeing the hard workers, the grafters, the guys who make the absolute most of what they can do. We don't necessarily get the American style star players who can just like shoot the lights out and score in a bunch of different ways and really just like take over a game like that on an individual basis, not just in like a doing your bit for the team kind of way. But here is one of them. And that makes him a unique prospect in Kiwi basketball, and also just a fascinating guy to see how a guy like that develops and hopefully moves through the New Zealand representative teams and stuff, because I don't know we've ever actually seen a player of this type of profile. Like, whether he fulfills that kind of potential down the line, I don't know. But this is a different profile of top prospect than we've ever really had. Like, there wasn't a guy like this in the under-19s team a couple, like last year, whatever it was, that came forth. That, Jackson Ball doesn't play like that. Oscar Goodman doesn't play like that. Julius Halaifanua doesn't play like that, etc. Right? Like, this is a unique figure for Kiwi basketball to have a hold of. So can't wait to track how that works out down the line. He's probably 2 years away from university stuff, so he's got plenty of time on his hands. He's a little way away. I guess the next time we'll probably see him would be Asia Cup, which should be under 18s qualifying for the to follow under 19 World Cup. So it's probably with those New Zealand teams that, as long as he's, willing and available, that we're most likely to see him doing his stuff and seeing how that progression is working. But yeah, it's a very, very exciting guy to follow because he's different.
Let's move into some cricket where we've got a Blackcaps ODI squad. Shout out to everyone on Patreon supporting the Niche Cage. If you do want to support the Niche Cage, Patreon's the best place to do so. We do our full newsletter, free section, paid section, copied into Patreon. And we also are recording an extra podcast each, usually focusing on Blackcaps and Kiwi football. Just for folks on Patreon and anyone with a paid Substack subscription. So if you are enjoying our Kiwi sports coverage, it's a couple of dollars on Patreon. There is also a option on Substack to have a paid subscription. You can also donate to the Niche Cage through Buy Me a Coffee, all of which is relevant because I did do a podcast about the Blackcaps ODI squad and plenty of Blackcaps ODI wrinkles for the Patreon whānau late last week. We've got a ODI tour of West Indies coming up, and the Blackcaps are a really good ODI team. As we said in the wash-up of that Test Series victory against One Cricket Cartel Nation, the multi-format excellence that became prominent through the Gary Stead era has been front and centre as Rob Walter took over as coach. Just this year, the Blackcaps have made a T20 World Cup final. They had an ODI series win in India with players like Christian Clark and Jayden Lennox performing at a high level in that ODI series win. Both of them are in the ODI squad. There has been a change with Ben Sears dropping out due to injury. Ben Lister comes in. Ben Lister's been a late call-up to nearly every Blackcaps squad over the last 12 months, so shout out to him. He is pretty low down the seam bowling depth chart, but I've got no problems with him getting opportunities. He has already played a bunch of cricket for New Zealand, ODIs and T20s. Nothing spectacular as of yet, so a player like Ben Lister needs to perform to keep getting selected for the Blackcaps. Otherwise, he will be overtaken by younger players very soon. But I've got no problems with him getting an opportunity for this tour of the West Indies. We've got Santner, Bracewell, Chapman, Clark, Duffy, Fisher, Foxcroft, Hay, Kelly, Latham, Lennox, Mitchell, Nichols, Smith and Young. Typically solid Blackcaps squad. The Blackcaps are an awesome ODI team, as we've talked a lot about. They destroyed England. Funnily enough, England sucks at ODI cricket as well as Test cricket and is just a weird cricketing nation. I don't know, some joker, some celebrity geezer who golfer, has fully embraced the shambles that is England cricket. So that's good to see, but who cares about them? I got to big up Daryl Mitchell because Daryl Mitchell's the best ODI batter for New Zealand right now, but he's also one of the best ODI batters New Zealand's ever seen. I think we've talked about this before. His ODI average is second highest all time for the Blackcaps, and Peter McGlashan scored like 60 runs with a higher average, so he doesn't really count. So Daryl Mitchell has the highest ODI batting average ever for the Blackcaps with over 100 runs, 58.4, and he is putting together a pretty crazy international career record, averaging 43 in Test cricket, 58.4 in one-day cricket, 27 in T20s with a strike rate of 140. That is tremendous for Daryl Mitchell. And he is a dominant ODI player for New Zealand, which is evident in the fact that he's played 19 innings since the start of 2025 in ODIs. So he is one of the players who has batted the most for the Blackcaps in ODI cricket over the last year and a half. which should mean you score lots of runs. But he is averaging 69.5 in this period. And the other dudes who have batted at least 19 times in ODI cricket, they're not doing as good. Because Will Young's batted 24 times and he's got 500 runs at an average of 21.7. Michael Bracewell, remember him. He's batted 19 times with 412 runs, averaging 31. Tom Latham's batted 19 times. He's got 398 runs, averaging 23. So that puts a little bit of a spotlight on Will Young and Tom Latham specifically, but it also shows, yes, Daryl Mitchell's played a lot of ODI cricket for New Zealand, but he's one of the best batters ever for New Zealand, so he's scoring a lot of runs with a very high average and a great strike rate, 92. So he is front and centre, top of mind for me. We've also, like, Mark Chapman's been fantastic in his ODI opportunities in recent years as well. Mitchell Santner's been very good as an all-rounder. He is captain for the Blackcaps in this series. What else do we have? Nick Kelly's an interesting player because we have seen him get a few opportunities for the Blackcaps recently. Was part of that squad for the Test series as well, so don't forget about Nick Kelly, lefty, mature veteran player. And Matt Fisher's in the squad as well, having already played Tests and T20s for New Zealand. Jacob Duffy returns to the team as well. That's Jacob Duffy, who himself has established a fantastic Blackcaps career, averaging 16 in Test bowling, 24 in ODIs, and 20 in T20 internationals. So the Blackcaps defeated a cricket cartel nation without Jacob Duffy. Who cares? Like, everyone was talking about seam bowling depth in that Test series, right? The hottest seamer over the last year wasn't even playing for the Blackcaps in that series. Do you have any points of interest for this Blackcaps squad or any Blackcaps questions you want me to hit on as they prepare to play the West Indies? I think that starts on the 11th. It isn't part of the New Zealand cricket schedule, though, so who knows what's happening there. And shout out John Fineanganofo, because he's another player who doesn't have an NRL profile. While we're on the topic of our own shambles, like we got to highlight shambles in our own realms as well. NRL profiles, New South Rugby League profiles, New South Wales Rugby League uploading highlights. They're all a shambles. Embarrassing for an organisation like the NRL, New South Wales Rugby League. New Zealand cricket schedules, you go to their schedules page, this series is not in there. That's shambolic. That's embarrassing. So just got to point it out where it is fit.
Yeah, I won't get started on the broadcasting of domestic football games either, where New Zealand football gave all their stuff to FIFA Plus, and then one day a couple weeks ago, FIFA Plus was just like, we don't exist anymore. All your stuff is on DAZN now. So, which is, I thought at first maybe that might actually be a more user-friendly thing. I might actually appreciate that swap. It's not. It's no better than the FIFA Plus once was. But I do appreciate Oceania Football, because when that happened, they had all their stuff on FIFA Plus, and they were just like, we're going back to YouTube. So now they're live streaming Women's Champions League games. Auckland United's playing in the semi-final tonight, and that one, Auckland City's going to the men's competition in a couple of weeks afterwards. I should mention also that with the New Zealand men's under-17s basketball stuff that just finished, where I think they were 12th out of 16 teams, so they won 2 games, lost 5, but they were, I think they would have been like 6-1 or 5-2 or something like that. If games finished after the third quarter, they weren't very good in fourth quarters, which, yeah, a few of those games got away from them in those spots. But that's the men's under-17s basketball World Cup. The women's under-17 basketball World Cup is coming up in like a week's time. So they have them back to back. So the women's one is in the spotlight coming up afterwards. Here's a Daryl Mitchell stat for you. Actually, here's a Hashim Amla stat for you. Fastest player to get to 3,000 ODI runs in the history of the format. Hashim Amla, 57 innings. For South Africa. Great batsman. One of the all-time greats. Incredible talent. Daryl Mitchell has 2,690 runs from 54 innings. There's 3 innings coming up in this maximum of 3 innings coming up in this series against the West Indies. If he scores 310 runs, he will tie Hashim Amla for the fastest batter in history to get to 3,000 one-day international runs if he, as is most likely, doesn't score 310 runs in 3 innings, or if he doesn't even, get an opportunity, especially where he bats. It's not like he's a guaranteed 100 on offer each time. He might come on with 10 overs to go, If he doesn't get there to beat Hashim Amla, well, second place is a 3-way tie between Shai Hope, Fakhar Zaman, and Imam ul Haq. 67 innings. So he's got 13 innings to score 310 runs, which at his current average, he would do that in 5 or 6 innings. He's very, very likely to be the second fastest man in history to get to 3,000 ODI runs.
Far more likely to be the second fastest than the
first fastest. But he can only tie as well, but it's possible.
But 310 runs, the carrot is there.
Yeah,
double century. Anything could happen in this series. Mark Chapman, since the start of 2025, averaging 74, strike rate of 107. So Mark he's doing all right. Dean Foxcroft stays in that Blackcap zone. So, I talked about this on the Patreon podcast. There is an anxiety for all Kiwi cricket fans about players' ages, which personally I'm not worried at all about. I live deep in the mangroves of Kiwi cricket, and I have no anxiety, no stress, no fear, no worries about the ages of Blackcaps players. So maybe that should be advice to other people, but they won't listen. Christian Clark, young emerging player. Matt Fisher, younger emerging player. Dean Foxcroft, young emerging player. Mitch Hay, young emerging player. Mitch Hay wasn't part of the tour of Bangladesh. So this is a return to the Blackcaps for Mitch Hay. And Mitch Hay, he hasn't been awesome in T20 batting, but he did score 61 runs on Test debut. And Mitch Hay starting his ODI career with an average of 31, strike rate of 104. So if you've been watching Mitch Hay, the T20 batter for New Zealand, you might think Mitch Hay sucks because he averages 11. But he's already got a Test 50. He's already got an ODI 50. First class average of 45. He does have a T20 career strike rate of 144 as well. So I'm pretty content with Mitch Hay being a good player and the next wicketkeeper in that Blackcap system, because Dane Cleaver was the wicketkeeper in Bangladesh. So they've basically swapped. So they've gone back to Mitch Hay after Dane Cleaver did the job in Bangladesh, and that's just good Blackcaps depth with so many options available. Spinners for the series, we got Santner, Bracewell. Foxcroft will be a spinning all-rounder for the Blackcaps in the series, and Jayden Lennox. Blackcaps, we've got Ashok in the system. Tim Pringle was playing for NZA recently, so they're on the rise as well. Do you have any more things you want me to talk about or highlight?
Not off the top of my head, but if you've got them, I want to hear them.
Well, I was asking you to prompt me, so that would help me, but you failed at that, so that's good stuff.
Oh, well.
Seamers since the start of 2025, or bowlers, Duffy's averaging 21.4. Nathan Smith and O'Rourke, they're averaging 30 and over 30, so there should be improvement for them. Zach Folks isn't in this series, which is a little bit interesting, but we don't know what's happening there, so we'll chill out. Christian Clark, I think he does have genuine all-rounder potential. He took 7 wickets at 26 in the ODI series against India, but he also scored 35 runs at a strike rate of 159. And he did hit a Plunkett Shield and Ford Trophy century last summer, I believe, off the top of my head. So watch out for Christian Clark as an all-rounder. He also played county championship cricket recently. And shout out Matt Boyle. He's playing T20 Blast over in Cricket Cartel country, but he took a wicket. And he's been very efficient as a spinner over the last couple of seasons as well. So I'm tracking Matt Boyle as a spinning all-rounder, not just a booming lefty, which seems notable. We've also had the first round of domestic cricket contracts released, and just like Blackcaps contracts, just like White Ferns contracts, who cares? Because this is just how players get paid. It doesn't have any correlation, connection to game time involvements. We've seen Blackcaps get contracts, not play, and vice versa. So it's mainly just to inform us about movement between the domestic cricket teams and other little bits of housekeeping like Rohit Gulati, now known as Rohit Kumar. So very important that we learned about that. As far as movements go, of course, there will be more movements probably highlighted in the second and maybe third, depending for some teams, round of contract announcements. We have Nick Kelly moving from Wellington to Northern Districts. He started with Northern Districts, then went to Otago, and then Wellington. Now he's back at Northern Districts. Nothing major to report about that move. He's going to be playing regardless of what team he was playing for. So that's all good. We also have Henry Shipley moving from Canterbury to Wellington. This is pretty damn funky because Henry Shipley has played for the Blackcaps before. He's been often injured throughout his career. As a very tall man, that's probably going to happen. But he's a very skillful cricketer, good batter, very good bowler, moving the ball all sorts of ways. He is now going to be working with Shane Jurgensen, who was the Blackcaps bowling coach. He is the Wellington head coach. So that's an interesting little bit for Henry Shipley. So I'm curious to see if this move for Henry Shipley does benefit his career. Especially because you go back to Canterbury. Well, Canterbury's never had a shortage of seam bowlers. And it was always a bit tricky. Like if you got Kyle Jamieson, Henry Shipley, Will O'Rourke, as well as domestic troopers like your Michael Rays, your Gus McKenzie's, Fraser Sheets. Game time was always a bit of an issue if you were part of that Canterbury bowling attack. So it's a good thing for Henry Shipley. I think as long as he's healthy, there should be no obstacles in his way to get game time now that he is with Wellington. And Canterbury seam attack, I mentioned a few of those guys, but very excited to see Matt Rowe and Lachlan Harper and Cameron Paul now step up into more prominent roles for that Canterbury seam attack. We haven't seen much of Matt Rowe. I think he moved to Canterbury at some point, like last few seasons, but he hasn't played much for Canterbury. So he's a very good bowler himself, along with Cameron Paul. And we did see Lachlan Harper shine in the Super Smash and domestic cricket last summer. So the move for Henry Shipley, I think, does have a lot of importance to New Zealand cricket to see if he can play consistently and then what happens from there, because his ability is already shown in the fact that he's already played for New Zealand. And then will his body enable him to play more cricket for New Zealand? And the other move is Jake Gibson moving from Otago to Central Districts. Jake Gibson's a very good all-rounder himself. Probably wasn't going to get a lot of game time with Otago because Luke Georgeson's a fantastic player for Otago. He's going to be getting all the all-rounder opportunities for Otago. Thomas O'Connor's an all-rounder on the rise. They got pretty solid seam attack with Dunru Ferns, Matt Bacon. Mason Clark is a very good youngster on the rise. Jared Mackay, can't forget about him because he did play for New Zealand A this winter. And Jake Gibson, in theory, should be getting more game time at Central Districts, who Will Clark has dropped out of the contracted tier, or at least the first round. He might get a 16th contract or something for Central Districts. He wasn't as good last summer as he had been before. So he's dropped down a tier, and I'm curious to see where he ranks in that Central District system. But they have got Jake Gibson in there as an all-rounder. So watch out for Jake Gibson. It'll be interesting to see if he can play red ball cricket for CD, because he has been a very good Super Smash player, hyper-aggressive batter, did open the batting for Otago a few times, and his skill set's pretty well suited to Ford Trophy as well, but there could be an opportunity for him to play more Plunkett Shield cricket with CD. So we'll wait and see any more contract announcements, or the next round of contract announcements at least. But those are the main movers. And obviously a bunch of other dudes got contracts for the first time, or returning contracts and all that stuff again. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to play or not play. We just wait and see who will play game by game. Because there's always a bunch of randoms who never have contracts who play very prominent roles for their domestic cricket teams. Let's finish with some Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix squad building. The Wellington Phoenix no longer have Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez, and you did highlight that the Wellington Phoenix have had an issue developing attacking players in recent seasons, and I do find it interesting. Like, think back to that Wrexham game. Flowerdew scored a goal in that Wrexham game. He's no longer with the Phoenix. And there's players, you've listed Flowerdew, Ryan Watson, Ben Wallace. They've all departed, and now Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez has departed as well. I'm not...
On top of that, there's like Luke Brooks-Smith probably didn't have as big of a second season last year as he might have hoped for as well. Like Nathan Walker was injured, so it's a bit hard to blame that on him. But yeah, it's like this is in contrast to the fact that goalkeepers, they seem really well stocked. Eamon McCarron and Albie Kelly-Hield are there. At some point, they'll have to make a choice between which one they stick with and who, wants to go somewhere else to further their career. But when that happens, well, like Joe Chalabi will step up. He's already made a bench once for the A-League team, and he's 17 years old. Like there's no shortage of goalkeepers. There's no shortage of centre backs. We've seen the development in Isaac Hughes over the last couple of years. Lucas Kelly-Hield will be, has done fairly similar things. He's been capped by the All Whites already. Matt Sheridan as a fullback. Schwan Loke will hopefully be a bit more prominent this year, but he's already, moving in a nice direction. Finra Conchi got another contract, and there's so there's a few midfielders even that they're doing nice things with. It's just the attacking areas don't really seem to be able to get in the best out of their attacking prospects. Not sure if they're recruiting the best attacking prospects, but I do know that I do know Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez was the youngest player who'd ever played for the Wellington Phoenix when he debuted. Luke Brooks-Smith broke that record about 8 months later. But a lot of hype about him at the time. And Oscar Zavada did like an Instagram, remember that guy? Did like an Instagram Q&A thing one time, and they asked him who's the most talented guy in the academy, and he pointed to him. He said Gabe Sloan Rodriguez is the guy. And he's in 2.5 years, two and a bit years since then, he's played like 5 times off the bench. He's barely gotten a crack. I think some of that is also misdiagnosing him, as not diagnosing, but misusing him maybe as a player, where I think they've seen him as like, he can do step overs, so we'll put him on the wing. Whereas I think what he should be developed as is a Sarpreet Singh style central attacking midfielder. But maybe wherever he lands next time will be the best, because the fact is he didn't play barely at all last year. I think he had 1 substitute appearance or something like that. Only played a handful of times in the previous year. He signed a scholarship contract was supposed to be moving up to in the third year of that contract, was supposed to be moving to a full contract status. Well, why would the Phoenix give him why would the Phoenix not want to wriggle out of a full thing? Like, why would they want to use a full contract spot in a salary caps league where you have limited amount of squad size? Like, why would you use a spot on a guy you don't seem to want to play? Why would he want to stay if he's not going to get to play? Yeah, best case for all scenarios is that he goes somewhere else. It would be pretty funny if he ended up at Auckland United. I mean, Auckland FC, because he's actually from Auckland originally. Another thing maybe to look out for is Giancarlo Italiano's got a job in Hong Kong. And like that's his next job after leaving the Phoenix. He's going to be coaching in Hong Kong, which is actually where Gabe Sloan Rodriguez was born. Don't know that he has any Hong Kong heritage. I think maybe just like parents were working in that area at some stage, just the stage at which he was born, I guess. But that might be an avenue, like an option that he has, because even though Chiefy didn't play him very much more than Chris Greenacre didn't, he was still the guy who gave him that contract in the first place. So he obviously saw something in him, and maybe that's an option for him, or, head overseas, or maybe play some National League for someone like a few of those other guys, like Luke Flowerdew Luke Flowerdew left and he signed with Auckland United. And then like about 2 months later, he scored a couple of goals straight away. Then about 2 months later, they signed Ben Wallace from Western Springs, who himself was a former Wellington Phoenix striker, like probably the wave immediately before Flowerdew. So Flowerdew left Auckland United because he'd been replaced by another ex-Wellington Phoenix player, and he's now at East Coast Bays. So East Coast Bays are having a great season. They're actually pushing towards maybe National League qualification for the end of the year. So hopefully Flowerdew is playing against the Wellington Phoenix when that comes around. See how that goes. But yeah, there are quite a few ex-Phoenix forwards scattered around, like ex-Phoenix players in general, but ex-Phoenix forwards scattered around those National League clubs all across the country who do seem to be scoring goals at that level. And yeah, I know it's a big step from there to get to the A-League, but guys do it fairly regularly if you pick the right players in the right environment. So he will be a very interesting one to track, and there does seem to be a theme there about the Wellington Phoenix. Maybe they're developing defenders really well. They're not developing forwards quite as successfully. But a lot of that was under a previous coach. We'll see if Chris Greenacre, with all his youth coaching experience and former New Zealand under-20 head coach status, whether he's able to change that at all. We'll see.
Well, it's hard to believe he's going to change it when he didn't want Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez. He's like, some of these departures have happened under Greenacre, and Greenacre's been the academy coach, hasn't he? Like, he's been
when he took over late last season, he was playing less of these, like Luke Brooks-Smith up until the last game. I think he gave him 45 minutes in the last game. Up until then, he was playing him less than Giancarlo Italiano had been playing him. And Italiano was getting all sorts of criticism for not playing Brooks-Smith more because his team wasn't playing well. And here's an X-factor player, which, yeah, he's going to make mistakes, but you're going to bench him because of the mistakes, or you're going to like try, embrace him and get the best out of him because he can do some stuff that maybe the rest of your team don't have. So even then, there's this like the way that Greenacre uses Brooks-Smith next season will be very, very educational, because I know I had a whinge about Auckland FC bragging about their attacking identity a couple of weeks ago, which is not true. Like they should be embracing the fact they're a legendary defensive team in the A-League. The Phoenix do the same thing all the time, and I've seen nothing from Chris Greenacre as a coach to think he's a particularly flowing attack-minded possession-based type coach, just because his under-20s teams would build up from the back. But where do you go from there? Are you building up the back with a purpose to create overloads and get your wingers in behind and runners attacking one-on-one and stuff like this, and lots of shots and lots of crosses and chances? Or are you just sort of passing it around the back and not getting anywhere with it? Because, yeah, I don't know. Even when Greenacre took over, I went through the list of reservations I had about that. I've not actually seen anything to convince me of anything other than that yet. But it is a big difference between taking over the last 6 to 8 games of a season and having a full preseason to yourself. So clean slate. We'll see how he goes.
But it's not really a clean slate because the one constant at the Wellington Phoenix over the last 5 years has been Chris Greenacre in
Yeah,
the system. So
yeah.
if the Wellington Phoenix have a problem developing attacking players, the one guy who has overseen all of that is now the head coach. So it's like, yes, Chiefy was the coach of the Phoenix, so he might cop some of the blame for how the players didn't elevate to the A-League team or didn't get opportunities to do so, but the system didn't produce those players into A-League players, right? Like it's a very big difference to what we're seeing at the Warriors right now, and even what we're seeing with Auckland FC. Like, I know that if a player debuts for the Warriors, they're ready to play NRL, and they're going to play NRL. You know, they're going to ease into NRL, then they're playing most games of NRL, then they're starting games of NRL, then they're just an NRL player. Whereas the Wellington Phoenix, you're clear to highlight the difference in positions, but for these attacking players, and the thing I was going to ask you, if any of these dudes moved on to better opportunities, and the answer is clearly not, because they're playing at a lower level. So they haven't.
The last one would be Ben Waine.
Yeah, but that's totally different to Flower Dew and Ryan Watson. Like, these guys are, like, this is the last 2 seasons, right? Like, these players are clearly not good enough to be playing A-League. So that does not reflect well on the development system that produced those players. And the guy in charge of that development system is now the head coach. Well, not the guy in charge, but a guy who's been the key figure over a while.
Yeah, the closest to anyone being in charge would be him.
Yeah, and he's now the head coach of the Phoenix. So it's hard to see, if he hasn't been able to produce A-League attacking players, well, what do we have to suggest that's going to change now that he's the head coach? Because, like, Luke Supik, he's also departed. Where's he now?
Yep, here's another one on that list. Yeah, I don't know. He hasn't signed anywhere
So
yet.
none of these dudes, none of these attacking players have made sideways moves. None of them have gone yet to Auckland FC or another A-League team. Regardless of how talented
Charlie
they
Hale
are.
did.
Sorry?
They had Charlie Hale did. He's been starting he's 18-year-old striker winger. Quite a good athlete too, quite fairly tall, and I've liked what I've seen of him, watching him for the Wellington Phoenix reserves, playing most games this season in Central League, and then a couple of weeks ago he turns up in an Auckland FC reserves lineup. So
but
he swapped. He's gone from academy to academy, and he scored 3 goals in 3 games, which is more than he scored for than more goals in 3 games for Auckland than he had scored in the 14 or 15 for Wellington up till that point.
But none of these dudes have gone to other A-League teams. They've all, if they've played A-League, they're not playing A-League anymore, which means they're not good enough to play A-League.
Yeah, they haven't had a Liam Gillian, for example, who leaves Auckland FC and signs with Western Sydney Wanderers. They haven't had an example like that since Ben Waine. Since Ben Waine went to England 4 or 5 years ago.
And you
Oscar
seem to
Van Hanem
think
is another example. He didn't go to anything higher, parallel or higher than A-League when he left. And he's someone who did get a lot of opportunities in the A-League. It's like, this is where this idea is brewing from. Is it's not a just because Supik and Sloan Rodriguez is gone. It's sort of I've seen this for a few years, and there's evidence adding up. They're just not. They're brewing good players in other positions. So this isn't saying bad academy. This is just saying this type of player doesn't seem to be, either doesn't get the chances or doesn't get the development in the system, it would appear.
But you don't think Sloan Rodriguez has departed the Phoenix to get another A-League opportunity? Do you think he will pop up for another A-League team?
Unless it's Auckland, no, I don't think so. But he is that's the thing, though. It's like, why would another A-League team sign him when he couldn't break through the Phoenix? But then also, if someone did, he might, the situation you find yourself in is often different from, it's not necessarily you didn't make it at the Phoenix, you won't make it anywhere. There's a talented player there, and he needs maybe to be in the right kind of environment to get the best out of that, which is the same with any youngster. The Phoenix didn't seem to be the right environment, and therefore it's very hard to sell yourself to another team when you've been released early from your contract like that. But if another team did come in, he might well be a whole lot better for them than he would be for someone else, you know? Like it's
the
a tricky spot you find yourself in there.
The evidence so far suggests that if you're an attacking player coming through the Wellington Phoenix system, you will not be good enough to consistently play A-League.
And there's also positions where they're signing a lot of imports, and in recent years signing a lot of Australian players to pad out those spots too. So this is why I say, like, the Luke Brooks-Smith has shown enough to say he is an A-League quality player already with high potential to go a lot further. So here's a guy who, and didn't come through the Phoenix Academy either, by the way, was signed as the same age as guys in the academy, but signed straight to the first team from elsewhere. That is going to be a very educational situation to see what kind of role he gets and how well he's used, because here's someone who is of, you know, parallel to the Phoenix Academy, but we know he's good enough. But we also know there's a lot more to come from him, and that hasn't really been harnessed yet in the first team environment, let alone what's happening beneath that. So how that situation unfolds, I think, will be very, very interesting through this lens.
Yeah, I think based on what I have observed, I think it's a bit ambitious to say we know he's good enough coming out of that Phoenix system.
He's not coming out of the Phoenix system, though. He's coming out of Hamilton Wanderers and
no, but he was
Cambridge
with the Phoenix.
United. And...
No, but he was with the Phoenix most recently. So if you're an attacking player at the Phoenix, yes, you showed some talent, but there's not a whole lot of evidence that you're going to be that's going to lead to A-League football. Because there's one thing from being a talented...
Are we talking about Brooks Smith here or Sloan Rodriguez?
Sloan Rodriguez. If you're a talented player and you've shown something...
Right,
cool.
Yeah, I was saying Brooks Smith, but yeah.
Yeah, if you're a talented player and you've shown something, that's fine. But it doesn't mean you're an A-League player. And like Brooks Smith has performed in the A-League.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
You're
right, like Sloan Rodriguez doesn't have that.
But he was a good teenager once. He is still a good teenager. But there's a difference, like, because I've seen Flowerdew play good football at a decent level pre-season for the Phoenix. And the Phoenix didn't want him. So, like, just with Flowerdew and some other players, I think there's a very interesting hole in the development pipeline there at the Phoenix that we need to track moving forward. And it's like...
There are some seriously good players as well in the age grade below this, like the sort of 15 to 17 year age range, where like Jack Clegg and Ben Tremberth are 15 years old in the current New Zealand under-16s team, starting regularly at Central League. So like playing men's football at 15 years old for the under-20s team. Phil Azevedo, there's another one as well. Oh, well, Charlie Hale. I mentioned Charlie Hale, he's gone. But Jack Paniski is another one. Like, there's some players who I absolutely think are on par with players we have seen make that step up, like Ben Waine, like players who are at the same equivalent age, good enough. So there's another thing to track there, is it's like what they've shown for New Zealand age grade teams, for Phoenix reserves when they've gotten those opportunities. These are guys to nurture and develop into, like, they absolutely have A-League potential. So will they deliver on that at the Wellington Phoenix? Will they have to go somewhere else to get that? Will they maybe stall because the Phoenix aren't doing well enough with their youngsters at getting them to bridge that gap between Central League and A-League? Again, like another angle of this to track, because there is, for the equivalent ages that they're at, like the talent is there as 15, 16, 17-year-olds. So will it be there as 19, 20, 21-year-olds when you're trying to play first team football?
at the Phoenix.
At the Phoenix or somewhere else, you might just leave if you start to see this
thing. If I was an attacking player, later bolt, because Auckland FC have shown, because a lot of their young players are more in the attacking mode. Your Jonty Bidwar, Fitz Harris, they were playing A-League football for the champions of the A-League, and they were doing all right. So if you're an attacking player like Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez, I wouldn't be surprised if he does go to Auckland FC and he's doing all right. Because right now, from a very basic perspective, if I was an attacking player, I'd rather be with Auckland FC based on how they develop that talent. And based on what we're also seeing in the other positions, and this goes back to stuff we've already talked about, so we'll keep it moving, but yes, Wellington Phoenix have a lot of centre-backs and these type of players, but now we're seeing that Auckland FC are well stocked in those positions, relatively speaking, as well. They've just had a 17-year-old play a lot of A-League football as a defender. And who's to say Visilic, he might be better than Hughes and Sheridan and those type of players. So
he's 3 years younger than them, and I wouldn't say he's better than them now, but I absolutely think he is the player with the highest potential of those guys, for sure.
All of which smells like the famed Wellington Phoenix Academy may be losing a bit of its luster compared to what we're seeing with Auckland FC on the rise in Aotearoa, who have announced the signings of Gallios. He's sticking around. Jonty Bidwar and Oliver Middleton have also, they're sticking around as well. Any word on Fitz Harris?
No, but Auckland FC are very weird with how they announce these things, because they won't tell you if it's a scholarship deal, which based on the wording, I don't think these are for Middleton and for Bidwar. Sounds like they've been promoted to the main team, which I think makes sense for Bidwar, because we did see him play, I think, 13 games off the bench last season. So he's starting to be used fairly regularly. And he has a backlog of scoring goals, not only for the under-20s team in National League and Northern League, but also by the end of the season, he scored a couple goals for the Pro League team as well, and started in the semi-final and the final for them. So clearly a player they've put a lot of work into, but also someone who's shown them, even if I don't think he's really shown anything at A-League level in any of those cameos, but that only adds up to like 100 minutes of action or something like that. The fact he has got a good record behind him at the levels beneath that, though, is enough to say, yeah, this is a dude we think we can get something out of. We're going to continue to persevere with him. Middleton, I'm very surprised by. We can't sit here for 20 minutes and talk about criticizing the Phoenix, but then not mention that. I'm quite surprised that Oliver Middleton's been given apparently a full contract. It might not be, because again, they're not very clear about it.
Just quickly,
off the back of an ACL injury and 1 7-minute substitute appearance over 2 years.
You can play A-League on a scholarship contract, right?
You can play A-League without a scholarship contract.
Exactly. So as an amateur. Yes,
if you're under an age, yeah.
But it's annoying to you, but there's no, again, with contracts, they are important to the player and how they get paid. But for me, the difference between a full-time and a scholarship contract, I don't care. Because
the reason in this context I think it matters is because if you sign into a scholarship player, you're signing someone else ahead of them to a full thing. It's a bit more like, where do you sit in the hierarchy? Well, if Jonty Bidwar, who's the best example of this, because I see how he's fitted into the team already to this point, if Jonty Bidwar's gone from scholarship to full contract, that suggests to me, and like you said, the contracts don't guarantee you anything. You still have to deliver and perform, and someone else without one might be better than you, and then you fall back in the pecking order. But that suggests to me that heading into preseason, they intend him to be their backup striker, which is quite a big role for a guy on a team that hasn't actually, they've given games to a lot of young players. They haven't given a lot of minutes to a lot of young players. And it's really only the second half of last season we started to see that, which, just kind of some slack for a team that didn't started from scratch. It's not like they had an existing academy ready to go. So fair enough. But I do think we'll see a bit more of that. And yeah, Bidwar seems to have been put in a spot like that, and maybe a good example of the don't like let's not well, I'm the thing with Middleton is it's not that I thought Van Fitzharris would have just overtaken him because he has actually shown some stuff for the first team and also done more than in my opinion, I think has played better than Middleton for the reserves as well. But again, like Middleton has had a serious injury, so he's been out of it for a little while. So I would have thought he would be more deserving, but I understand if they're going like he already had a scholarship, so we move him up and Fitzharris moves into the scholarship, and there's a hierarchical kind of approach to it. And it doesn't by any means mean that Middleton will play ahead of Fitzharris if Fitzharris is better. Where that surprises me is it's like, well, they let Finn McKinlay and Adamakula Bali go completely, and those guys did play a little bit of A-League. Middleton had one appearance in the A-League, so he also got one, but those guys played in the first year. Middleton only played in the second year and then got injured. I would have thought they would be, especially with how they're actually they're not reloading the midfield as much as I thought they might have to be, because they did sign Lachlan Bayless, but they've managed to re-sign Gallegos, they've re-signed Howison. Doesn't suggest to me that Brimmer will be back. I wouldn't be surprised if they negotiate a release there, because that's not an uncommon thing for Australians playing at New Zealand sports teams and Australian leagues, is that they don't always see through their contracts. He is under contract for at least one more year. But like, I know he's had some personal circumstances, and then maybe he's had a few injuries as well. And he also just didn't seem to fit very well in the team, but maybe a new coach will change things. You wait and see how that goes. But I was surprised that McKinlay got released, because I thought he was the best of their first scholarship. Their under-20s versions, because I wouldn't put Liam Gillian in the same thing. He's a couple of years older. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see, because obviously they get access to a whole lot of training sessions, and they've seen stuff from these players that I haven't seen. I've only watched the games. So, and then also when it comes to someone like McKinlay leaving, well, maybe he just has an offer somewhere else that he wants to take up. So it's not necessarily the club's decision, it might be the player's decision. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but I do think their squad will potentially be forced to being a little bit thinner with the salary cap clamping down next season, and that might be a concession to that is keeping Bidwara and Middleton around and elevated spots that maybe they wouldn't have had room for them in the past. I'm also curious to see, and it's like we haven't seen anything from it yet, but I'm curious to see whether any of the best guys from their Pro League team might get an opportunity in the A-League if they view that, because they've shown us they view that Pro League stuff as like, here's the next stepping stone for your best under 20s players, because the best under 20s players have been used in that. Bidwara is one of them. Middleton would have been as well if he didn't get injured. But are they also looking at those guys from outside, like the over 20-year-old guys, or the players they've signed from outside their system? Are they looking at them potentially as candidates for the first team, or is that maybe a bridge too far to cover the gulf in quality between those two? We'll see if anything like that unfolds. I don't know. I mean, the best example from that might be someone like Isa Prince, but that's not actually that good of an example, because he would count as an under-20s player this year because he's played already a game for the reserves. Bailey Ferguson is the other one. It's like those guys could just sign and join their under-20s team for National League, so that's not actually the best example, but they're the type of players you might be looking at for scholarship deals. A few others, because they've cleared up at least 4 now. If Middleton and Bidwara, if they're not on scholars, they've already released. Gillian's gone too, so that's a 5th one on top of McKinley and Koulibaly. So they're kind of clearing out that stock, which clears room for them to pick and choose from the rest of their teams who are the best guys in that sort of under 21, under 22 kind of age range. Who are we going for here, and want to keep them around the club? Because if you don't sign them to scholarship deals at that age, they're going somewhere else. So that's kind of how you retain those types of guys. And I think They've got quite a few. They've got quite a few options for those. Fitzharris will surely get one of them. Visilic already has one of them. I think he might be the only retained scholar from last year. Um, Not sure what's up with Joe Knowles as a goalkeeper. He's been injured for ages, but yeah, a few decisions for them to make, and maybe some enlightening decisions amongst them.
And the Auckland FC, as we've talked a lot about, do have a fantastic development pipeline that will ensure they fill from the bottom up. To be fair to Wellington Phoenix people and fans and the organisation, there are also examples of Auckland FC players going backwards as far as like their junior system, but we won't have that confirmed until we see like where McKinlay ends up, where Koulibaly ends up.
Koulibaly's gone to Auckland United, so that's a very similar track to a lot of these Phoenix players. In fact, it's a club that a lot of Phoenix players go to when they get released by the 20s. So that one actually is pretty much the same.
And if McKinlay, I like the look of McKinlay from what I saw in his...
Love him. I think he's a brilliant prospect.
Like on A-League debut and stuff like that. But then he dropped out of the regular rotation for Auckland FC. So based on his playing time, he's slid backwards. That's not the recipe to then get another opportunity elsewhere in the A-League, right? Like, if you've been going backwards, you're not then going to be hunted by another A-League team. And you're probably going to struggle to get an opportunity outside of the A-League based on that as well. So it's hard to see McKinlay going up a level or two, having gone down a level or two in the Auckland FC system, but who knows, he might make a move up. So there are examples of players going backwards in the Auckland FC system as well. It's just not as concentrated to one specific role on the field that we've seen with the Wellington Phoenix.
Yeah, that's basically it. It's that the Phoenix seem to have a hole in developing forwards specifically. And with any of the stuff, there's always a whole lot of wiggle room for just like weirdness is going to happen. A coach thinks differently than a different coach, and one player doesn't get an opportunity that they would have got at another club, just bad luck, random circumstances, all sorts of chaos in the footballing world. That stuff happens all the time. But yeah, I am keeping an eye out to see where McKinlay pops up, because he hasn't turned up at a National League club. So I'm hoping that means maybe like if you could get in on the trial circuit in England, that's always a possibility around this time of the year when they're going into preseason. Lower league stuff in America, South Asia sometimes now is apparently turning into a fairly big market, more for the older guys than the younger guys, but who knows?
Phoenix?
Swap deal, Charlie Hale for Finn McKinlay would be an interesting one. Yep.
Well, just
he is a bit more of the profile that the Phoenix are actually better at developing, a defensive midfielder, you know. So maybe there's your Alex Rufer replacement if he does leave.
There we go. Bang. That's us for this week. Stay tuned on YouTube. Do have a rugby league video coming there. We'll have a cricket podcast on Patreon. We'll have another football podcast later in the week on Patreon as well. Big up everyone. Onwards and upwards. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.